You want to know the story behind the big banana squash? Keep watching. Hello everyone, this is Audra with My Urban Garden, and today I want to tell you the story behind my big banana squash. So behind me is my banana squash plant, and you can see right over here, this is the main stalk right down there. You can see it's probably 2 inches in diameter or so, I would say, maybe 1.5 inches. That's the main stalk, and I have it growing all along the top of my fence. So that was actually a volunteer. I did not plant that. My old compost pile used to sit right here on the straight on the ground, so that ground was really rich. And I did grow banana squash last year, and I guess when I composted some of the seeds and things, it fell in there and it decided to grow this year. So I didn't even plant that particular banana squash plant this year. So I'm not a big fan of a messy garden with things growing everywhere and weeds all over the ground. Plus, I live in town on a 1/2 acre, so I have to make sure that I use every amount of space that I can. So I grow my banana squash up and across the top of my chain link fence, which actually makes for a really nice squash, because when the squash grow, they hang down from the front fence, and I feel like gravity helps kind of make them bigger and longer in a more nice uniform shape. When they're laying on the ground, they're more prone to getting things to eat them, to get bugs, to get those ugly splotches on the bottom where they were laying on the ground. So I think growing them on the fence like this just makes for a really nice squash, plus it saves space. So right here is an example of one growing off the fence. You can see this stalk is not terribly big. It's maybe 1/4 of an inch. And it's perfectly supported there. You don't need anything to support it, and they just grow hanging down. Now this is not a very big one yet, but if I let it go, it will get big just like those other ones. I've got another one right here. It's on the other side of the fence. You can see it growing right in there. So that's kind of what they look like. You don't have to support them. The vine is plenty strong enough on its own, and they'll just grow. My 23-pound one that I had grew just like that without any support. So this is actually a baby one. So here's what it looks like when it's on the other side of the fence, but that's what they look like when they're a baby. And you can actually pick them at that size and eat them like you would a zucchini or a yellow crookneck or something like that. So that's what they look like when they're babies. I actually almost lost this plant earlier in the season, and I have a video about that where I had to take out a vine borer that was in the stalk. And if you're interested in knowing about that, you can watch that video, and we'll post the link somewhere for that. Anyway, so banana squash, yes, they are supposed to grow this big. You can pick them when they're small and eat them like a summer squash, or you can wait until they're big and huge and kind of harden off and their skin outside gets hard and gnarly, and then they're a winter squash, and they'll store for a couple months throughout the winter. That's why they're called winter squash. So to eat them, they taste kind of like, they're kind of like a butternut squash, only milder. So I might say they taste more like a spaghetti squash, but they're more like a butternut squash on the inside. To cook it, we usually just roast them in the oven. If it's not too terribly big, you can literally just rub the outside of that thing down with olive oil, shove it in the oven, and bake it for a few hours. If it's too big, you can slice it in half, spoon the seeds out, and rub some olive oil and salt and pepper on it and bake it that way. So you bake it just like you do any other winter squash, a butternut or a spaghetti or something like that. So anyway, this is the story behind my giant banana squash. Yes, I will grow them again next year. If you want to get seeds for them, check on eBay, or I might have some available later on in the season, so keep watching for that. Anyway, I'd love to have your questions or comments about this. I'm happy to answer them. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you next time.